Okay, so as I've said, I've just typed this up. I've done it quite quickly because of the impending concern that I have regarding this. I actually think this is, like I've said, the biggest threat to us all at the moment. And I'm going to read it to you, and I'll put this document within the document file link. Like I've said, I may add a couple of bits to it because, like I say, I have put this together fairly quickly due to the urgency. And I'm going to read it to you and just explain some bits as we go. Now, again, you can verify and corroborate most of the information on here through my previous videos and documents that are within the document file link. And I do suggest you go and do that. Don't just trust my word on all of this. Some of it is I haven't documented elsewhere, but I'm going to put it in there anyway because I think it's important. So the document is Directed Energy Systems, my main points of concern. And number one is in around 2008 and 2009, whilst I was a police officer, I dealt with a person who was very clear and adamant that they were being directed with some form of energy weapons, causing them health issues during an apparent dispute with the council or government. I've already mentioned this a couple of times in the other videos. And I was very troubled by it, and I didn't really know what to do because she was so clear about it. But I wasn't aware of any such weaponry at that time. Number two, 2009, I became a director for Exbourne Manor Freehold Limited, a company started in 2007 with Swifting Corporations Limited. Jordan's Limited is a freehold company for a block of flats in Bournemouth in Dorset. I later established that this is an illegal entity company due to a forgery of its incorporation through Jordan's Limited, and was embroiled in decades-long international government fraud that is linked to child trafficking. And you can look at all of the other evidence for that in my other videos. Number three, in May 2019, an article by the Ham and High details major corruption linked to 790 Finchley Road, London, where 260,000 companies were once registered. The article states the address is linked to corrupt politicians, dictators, and fraud, including through the taxation system. Gordon Bowden had been investigating this location and international government fraud, and later I heard rumours, that he may have been killed using directed energy system to cause cancer. Of course, I've got nothing to verify or corroborate that that's true. It was just someone's told me that they had information or suggested that's how he might have died. But we'll move forward. Now, I haven't focused too much on the fraud because this is really about me showing as quickly as I can a chain of evidence linking to my concerns about the 5G networks now in place and why I think they're so dangerous. In September 2022, I start reporting the fraud regarding my company to relevant organisations. This was after 3 directors and the managing agent resigned after me wanting to view the bank accounts for our company due to an expensive roofing project. And I identified that there was over £167,000 missing in service charge contributions appeared to have been omitted by others since 2015. I identified that false bank documents appeared to have been being used by our company and that they had been produced by Lloyds Bank. All the evidence suggested it had been produced by them, and I've got that all documented. I also identified that an accountant friend of another apparent shareholder in my company appeared to have been using the forged bank documents to file our company accounts for years. This shareholder claimed to be a former NHS chief executive in charge of a £700 million budget at the time, and I haven't put it here, but 10,000 staff. And their husband claimed to be a former Dorset police officer. So my reports in relation to this to the authorities results in the Economic Crime Unit of Dorset Police, my former police force, producing 2 emails indirectly confirming that they were allowing forged bank documents to be produced by the banks and used in circulation. So it was very clear there was a loophole in their response to my reports to them that they were allowing those bank documents to be used, when what they should have done is obtain an evidential statement from the bank to confirm that those, or not, confirm they were either authentic or not, those bank documents, so they could have either closed or investigated the crime, but they chose not to. And in fact, provided evidence they were allowing it to happen. So anyway, move on. I identified that sensitive information about my reports had been leaked by Dorset Police to already named prime suspects. So I'd already named them in an email, and then I found out from an email that those suspects sent when they were trying to have me removed as a director that loads of information was contained in it that only Dorset Police knew about the investigation that I was reporting to them. And my devices start being intercepted by tracking apps appearing on my phone and also I had emails that were infiltrated, as well as me being followed when I returned home with my wife. So my wife can verify a lot of this as well. I identify that other shareholders appear to have paid no service charge contributions into the building to which my company relates since 2015. And they appeared to be possible relatives of Sam de Raya. Now, Sam de Raya was at the time the Deputy Chief Constable for Dorset Police and was overseeing the Dorset Police Economic Crime Unit where I was reporting the fraud. Sam de Raya was also the firearms commander for the Metropolitan Police. Now, I will do a statement, and my statement's almost there actually. So I've got a full statement detailing all of this, which may need to be redacted slightly, but I am going to make that, well, it's already going to be, if anything happens to me, it's going to be made available, and it'll be fully released anyway. But if I can stay alive, then I will release a redacted version of it. But she was also the firearms commander for the Metropolitan Police at the time, according to the research. Okay, that's very important. I escalated my growing concerns to the Independent Office for Police Conduct, the Serious Fraud Office, and the Home Office. The Independent Office for Police Conduct shared my comprehensive statement with Dorset Police without my consent, and despite knowing all of what I've just said, and a lot more. Okay, I haven't even said everything. There's a lot more to it than that, but we'll be here for all days. I've got a 100,000 word statement. So, and this, of course, placed my family and I at serious risk of harm. I suspect an attempt was later made on my life in February 2024, which is detailed in one of the videos, the Rishi Sunak video. Number 5, on the 17th of September 2022, Mark Rowley. Okay, so this is very soon after I started reporting this. Mark Rowley becomes the Chief Constable of the Metropolitan Police, and a Lynn Owens is also moved from senior positions within the police around that time. Now that's important because of the links to the management company for my company had the same surname potentially, so it could be relevant. So I've just put that there. Number 6, in November 2022, Dorset Police Chief Constable Scott Chilton moves to Hampshire and Isle of Wight Police. Okay, so it's not long after I've reported the fraud. Now, the Chief Constable is in charge of the whole force. And I also later, I haven't put it on here, but I later make connections to the Police and Crime Commissioner, David Sidwick, to the system of fraud and linked through Companies House to the management companies as well. Number 7, in January, February 2023. Now, this is where we start getting a little bit more relevant to the directed energy weapons side of things. January, February 2023, Nicola Bully goes missing by the side of a river in Lancashire. Peter Faulding is brought in as a search diver and states that he is adamant that Nicola is not in the river. Nicola is found around 3 weeks later in the river in Lancashire. Number 8, on the 1st of July 2022, I am removed as a director from my company, and the former NHS Chief Executive is instated as a director, as well as the previous chair of the board of the directors, who had resigned when I wanted to view the bank accounts for our company. Okay, I've already said 3 resigned. They were one of them. They removed me, brought in the NHS Chief Executive, former NHS Chief Executive, the former chair that had resigned when I wanted to look at the accounts, and brought them back in as a director. Okay, I didn't resign. I was actually removed by them. I suspect that this was for me refusing to agree to file our accounts using forged bank documents, knowing full well it would be a serious criminal offence to do so. Number 9, August 2023, an article claims that Sam de Raya will be moving from Dorset Police to Hampshire and Isle of Wight Police, where the former NHS Chief Executive, okay, that I've just told you about, also had jurisdiction, and for whom the MP for that area had set up an informal parliamentary island group linked closely to Ghislaine Maxwell and the apparent murder and abuse of children within the care system, and that was on the Isle of Jersey and some other islands. Now, you need to go and look at my other video and documents on that, and that is the critical child concern document and videos, I believe, or child protection. Number 10, around November 2023, I realised government organisations are heavily involved in the fraud at this point, okay? I'd already made connections to the Independent Office of Police Conduct and the Serious Fraud Office, I believe, at this time. Now, these timings may be slightly out because I've rushed this together, but my statement has more specifics. I tried to contact many mainstream media companies to try and expose the fraud, and all ignore the information. I later find evidence through Companies House that they are heavily linked to the fraud themselves, and most are illegal entity companies. I start publicising videos on YouTube, including links being made to 788 790 Finchley Road, Swifting Corporations Limited and Jordan's Limited, the ones that started my company. And the 788 and 790 linked to the Ham and the High article that I told you about as well. Now, around this time, I haven't put this, but it's very relevant. I'm going to do a separate video. I also contacted Nigel Farage. Now, Nigel Farage has recently been through the hoo-ha with the Coutts Bank, and I informed him of the forged bank documents on an email and put loads of evidence. I've got the emails, put loads of evidence on there, and I had a response from Nigel Farage saying, "I'm very sorry, we can't help you. There's so many horrendous things going on at the moment, or something very similar. I can't help you." He then went and opened accounts with Lloyds Bank, even though I just told him that. And of course, there's evidence that I have in a document linking Nigel Farage heavily to this system of fraud as well, and I'm going to release that in a separate video, and that document will go into the file. Number 11, and that's important because he has just become, hopefully many of you are aware, he's just become the head of the Reform Party. Number 11, someone suggests I look at the Nicola Bulley case. As a result of this, I identify multiple connections through Companies House and that BAE Systems and Thales, which is a company, were developing directed energy weapons around the time of Nicola's death. Okay, and you can look at that, and you can look at my document, and it's from the BAE Systems website that they were actually developing this weapon. I start to publicise this information and receive contact from people who claim to be technologically minded and are adamant that directed energy weapons have been integrated in the 5G systems and low emission zone cameras, and that it links closely to COVID and the vaccines. Now, for those of you who don't know what 5G is, it's and I don't know all the technical words, of course, but we had 3G, where we were all using our data connections for our mobiles. We then had 4G. 5G is the upgraded version, okay, and that is now in place around most of the country, not just this country, around many developed nations. Okay, so I received this information. Of course, I've got to take it with a pinch of salt. I don't know these people, but they show me lots of videos, technological videos explaining the components of these devices and explaining why they're dangerous. But I have to take that with a pinch of salt. Okay, I have to look at that as a side element, because I can't obviously verify or corroborate that because I'm not technologically minded, but it's important. I received information from others at a later date, okay, completely separate people that actually I was speaking to, who claim that microwave weapon technology had been being developed for decades previously, and I have to consider that this may relate to the member of public from 2008 or 2009 that I mentioned at the beginning. In November 2023, according to articles, the diver regarding the Nicola Bulley case, Peter Fording. According to articles, the driver regarding the Nicola case, Peter Fording, his original statement contradicts his original statement and claims that he had found Nicola's body in the river, and that he had told the police, who insisted they check, but claims they were not there. Now, this is really important because don't forget, I'd already publicised the links to my company. And if you read on there, Companies House shows that Peter Fording links immediately to 788 790 Finchley Road through his companies, and to Swifting Corporation Limited, and to my company, to Jordan's Limited. So the same links in my company also link to Peter and Fording, and I just recently publicised those connections to the fraud. So it's quite possible that Peter was panicking and wanted to absolve some liability from him for what happened with Nicola Bulley's body. It's possible. That has to be considered, doesn't it, with that? The other thing I forgot to put on here is that, and you'll see this in the Nicola Bulley document that is within my document file link available, and I'll put that on the link at the description of this video, but it's on, and it's also in most of them, and you'll find it at the top of my Telegram channel as well, is that the police and police crime commissioner was linked through the councils, okay, and through a crime, I can't remember the name of the company, you'll see it on the document, Crime Initiative Company, to Thales, to the very same company that was that was developing the directed energy weapons with BAE. So there were connections with those involved. There was also connections through a particular former police officer who was investigating this as a private investigator, but they'd also been investigating the Madeleine McCann case, where there's multiple links to the same fraud, same companies as well, and they instigated Operation U-Tree with Jimmy Savile. Okay, so it's really, all these links are very, very important. And the fraud is all the way through. The same companies all the way through, and they're illegal entity companies. But obviously we're focusing on the directed energy side of things. So we had a change of story from Peter Fording. Number 13, October 2023, lead investigating officer for Nicola's case, Peter Lawson, is found dead in his home address at age 50. Research later suggests Lawson is heavily linked to the fraud through Companies House and to Royal Companies. There is also a Peter Lawson linked closely to my company with an older date of birth. I can't confirm that's the same person, but the other research where I've got a document for suggests it is the Peter Lawson for the police that then links through to the fraud massively and to the international banking as well. Number 14, January 2024, Chief Constable of Lancashire Police, Chris Rowley, resigns after criticisms arising regarding the disclosure of personal information about Nicola. Now, I suspect there was more to it than that, but that is what the news articles stated the reason was. Now, you've also got the Metropolitan Police Constable with the same surname of Rowley. I don't know if they're related. Anyway, so number 15, articles are published around this time regarding Dragonfire, a directed energy weapon system having been produced with BAE, Thales and other companies, now openly being tested by the Ministry of Defence. Articles about this are found going back as far as 2017 for its original development process. Of course, they could have been put there, suggesting that this was when it was first being considered. Now, this article about Dragonfire, the first time I was aware of this, I think, was January 2024, so it's quite recently. So, we're now having the publication now of these directed energy weapons. Number 16, around this time, I identified that apparent members of my company quickly linked to MI6 and international banking fraud through false entity creation in Companies House. And I send the evidence to almost 650 members of Parliament repeatedly, but get completely ignored. Okay, pretty much. I get the odd email, but then one from, which we'll come to in a minute, which you're aware of, hopefully, from my other videos, where Harriet Harman replied, she was the only one, saying that she couldn't help me because I wasn't a constituent of hers. I make, at this time, reading on, numerous reports to the investigative authorities regarding the fraud, the connections to the directed energy weapons concerns being integrated into the 5G, and all ignore it with no response being received. And there is a video and a document you can see within the document file link showing all of those police reports, the dates and everything. And I've also identified that I had one response fairly recently, can't remember the date, it's there. And all it was saying, Gary, please don't mention this specific person from your company. Unbelievable. So I've made all these reports, child trafficking, a threat of directed energy weapons through the 5G, and all they can respond with is that they haven't even looked at my evidence at all at any stage, including with the family that I was concerned about on the Isle of Wight, which is a separate, is covered in a separate video. Okay, so they're avoiding the 5G concerns completely. 17, February to March 2024. Evidence emerges that council watch groups and others have identified that local councils are showing safety certificates for the 5G masts erected in communities that have been created by companies that dissolved years ago. This is very serious, and no reasonable explanation is provided as far as I'm aware. This appears to have been deliberately to absolve any liability or accountability for possible health risks of the 5G. Now, this is incredibly serious. Okay, this is a fraudulent offence. To produce a document that is not created lawfully by a company that is fraudulently operating, okay, because if they're a limited LLP or PLC company, they should not be creating anything. They can't act in any way lawfully. And yet here they are, the council are presenting these to the general public saying, here you go, this is a safety certificate. Well, that's fraud for starters. That in itself is very alarming, suggesting these 5G masks are very dangerous and they're trying to hide that from the public. Number 18, April or May 2024. I make connections through Companies House to the fraud. The Association of Conservative Clubs was actually starting through from Rishi Sunak, okay? BAE Systems, Thales, and another company called Cobhams that had all been involved in producing the directed energy weapons. There were also quick links to Russia, Ukraine, the intelligence services, my company and the royal family, but worryingly also to pooled pension fund companies around the directed energy weapons, okay? This suggested that there was a collaboration with the fraud and the production of the same energy weapons with nations that the public were being led to believe were at risk of being at conflict. This is very serious. So it appears they're producing the same weapons that are being advertised by the Ministry of Defence as now being tested, Dragonfire, at a time when we're being led to believe they are at risk of conflict. Russia, we're talking about, okay, and Ukraine in a war, and now the threat of nuclear war potentially we're reading about with Russia. They are all working together in this fraudulent system, okay? Now they're under pressure for there to be some sort of false flag incident or an attack that will make it look like this was all real, and that will allow the ability to reset the financial system, remove Companies House, and instill a digital currency system to control anyone that survives. Okay. Number 19. I obtained various company names of those having seemingly been involved in implementing the 5G network. Okay, so I got this from those technologically minded people that I mentioned before. Okay, and they gave me a load of names to check and associated with street lighting as well. I conducted research on these companies and all of them link almost immediately to the system of fraud, with most being illegal entity companies, meaning there is no liability, deliberately no legal liability or accountability at all, because they're unlawful illegal entity companies. Every single one of them. Research showed that Siemens, being one such company, was founded in 1847. It's a German company. 3 years after Companies House started, had been known to supply materials to the Nazi concentration camps and had been identified as having set aside £50 million annually in bribery funding. Links are quickly made from some of these companies to my company and to Thales and BAE Systems again. The same companies that are creating the directed energy weapons. They are weapons. And they're involved in the 5G. There are various links to the Freemasons through the research and many pension fund companies. Number 20, April to May 2024. I reach out to many alternative media broadcasters who are speaking out about COVID and the harm caused by the vaccines and the Gaza, Ukraine as well, they're talking about. But none of those, where I have found links to them to the fraud, and there are many, in fact, most of them I found links to the fraud, none of them appear to be willing to discuss the fraud. It's links to the child trafficking or the 5G. This includes Andrew Bridgen. Now, I have to say this. Now, Andrew Bridgen, I've been in personal contact with Andrew, and I mentioned to him the fact that I had information suggesting he was a Freemason. I also stated that I had information linking him to the fraud, which I do through Companies House. He may not have known about it like I didn't. He responded, didn't even mention the link to the fraud, said he'd been approached by the Freemasons 3 times and refused. Okay. I then sent another message to Andrew Bridgen saying, look, whether you've been a Freemason or not, it doesn't matter, because some of them, I believe, are good people and they didn't know what was going on. Many of them, in fact, I believe. But you can use your voice to help save the children. There's very clearly child trafficking, abuse of children going on, disappearing from the system. Use your voice to help expose this. I didn't hear a response back from Andrew in relation to it. Okay, so this appears to be an excessive emphasis on the poor management of the COVID outbreak, with matters such as Partygate, the excessive deaths being highlighted now after the vaccine rollout, and deleted WhatsApp messages by members of parliament, etc. So they were interviewed. Hopefully many of you have seen that. It was clearly a deliberate attempt to ensure that many people no longer take any further vaccines. But nobody wants to discuss the 5G concerns. Okay? Now think about it. If you were to roll out a vaccine or a fake virus, a vaccine, and then completely undermine that vaccine so that nobody else takes it, and really emphasise how poorly it was managed and how corrupt the government was around it, the chances are no one's going to take it. Okay, just bear that in mind, because at the end I come to my personal conclusion on this. Number 21, April/May 24. I take part in various meetings regarding COVID and 5G. Okay, these are remote meetings on Zoom, etc. And a study by another shows an associated increase in mortality around the world during the activation of the 5G network. I can't remember the date, but it was well before the COVID outbreak. I received information of a recent incident in South Africa where several people had become seriously ill and possibly died whilst near a 5G mast, and that tests had revealed that I'll retype this for when I put it in there. In relation being emitted radiation, that the radiation being emitted from the nearby mast was almost 1,000 times above what is safe for humans. A news article from 2019 also suggests that several children became suddenly ill with cancer after a mast had been erected outside of their school, and that article has been preserved. These meetings also involve discussions with others who have been involved in contesting some 5G planning applications with a degree of success, but clarification that suggests the local governments are persistent on installing the potentially harmful 5G systems, but will not have liability or accountability regarding their safety. So they're insistent, even with all of these concerns and the fraud and everything going on, they're insistent on getting this technology in place, potentially harmful, according to some technological wizards, very harmful, dangerous technology. I also received information from another source that a different company involved in 5G mast installation had also previously supplied materials to Adolf Hitler and for the Nazi concentration camps. In early May 2024, I received what appears to be a leaked population report, which shows a huge reduction in the population in the UK and many other developed countries around the world by the end of 2025. Now, I can't confirm the authenticity of it. It was sent to me by others, but they've also sent information suggesting why that is authentic. Number 23, 8th of May 2024. Articles are publicised stating that AstraZeneca are withdrawing their COVID vaccines from public use. AstraZeneca UK Limited was incorporated with Swift Incorporations Limited and Jordan's Limited. And you go and look at and verify and corroborate this. The same two companies that started up my company, where forged bank documents were found and where there's international banking fraud linked to the intelligence agencies and to the directed energy weapons companies. Number 25, 18th of May 2024. I send an email to around 200 recipients, including members of the World Economic Forum, NATO, the FBI and the World Health Organization, detailing my evidence surrounding the fraud, child trafficking and directed energy weapons, as well as concerns of a possible conspiratorial weapon strike on England by Russia, Ukraine, the UK and US to remove Companies House and reset the financial system and implement full digital currency control. So I sent that email on the 18th of May. On the 21st of May, the head of the World Economic Forum resigns, Klaus Schwab. It is tipped that Tony Blair will replace Schwab, but it is very likely that Schwab will still have involvement and an element of control. Tony Blair is heavily linked to the fraud and to 788 to 790 Finchley Road. Number 27, 22nd of May 2024. Rishi Sunak announces an early general election. Okay, this is the day after, for 4th of July 2024. On the same day, I establish immediate links through Companies House to BAE Systems, the same company that was involved in the directed energy weapons, and to Nightingale Beds and Hospitals that have been built in preparation for a possible COVID virus outbreak. Okay, these hospitals were never used and they are linked to the fraud and to my company closely. Research showed that AstraZeneca, Moderna, and Pfizer are all linked to illegal entity companies, the fraud, child trafficking, and political scandals. In May 2024, I received reports of a possible further virus/disease outbreak, possibly requiring the need for a further vaccine. I'm going to retype that. So that is worrying, and that was the bird flu virus outbreak. You can look at that. There's various reports that is becoming an issue. Number 29. At some time in May 2024, I received a report regarding Elon Musk's proposal to launch a million 5G-enabled satellites around the world. Elon Musk links to the fraud and my company. And let's look at that now. Now, I do suggest you can verify and corroborate this. Go and look on the Companies House register and you will be able to see that this is all true, this information. Here's a record, what appears to be Elon Musk. And I think you'll agree it probably is. Elon, I'm sure you'll let us know if this isn't you and you didn't set this up. Please let us know if you've also been a victim. So here we go. We've got Surrey Satellite Technology Limited in Los Angeles, foreign company, and he was director from 2005 to 2008. This is that company based in Guildford. Incorporated in 1985. So we're looking at the overview page of that company, and you can see their original name, their incorporation name, Fairstock Limited, at the bottom, for less than a month. Okay, and what did they do? Manufacturer of electronic components, manufacturing air and spacecraft and related machinery. Okay, so it certainly sounds like Elon Musk. And lo and behold, the incorporation document has Nigel Leonard Blood. Now that features right throughout the fraud. You'll see that it links to Jeffrey Epstein, to Max Clifford, to the child trafficking rings, etc. And also we've got this address that features throughout 84 Temple Chambers, Temple Avenue. Okay, so you've also got the London Law Agency and a legal entity company. If you go and look at that, type it in onto the Companies House record, you'll see it's London Law Agency. That, in brackets, it's actually got Ganvilon Motors on its incorporation document. It's never been registered lawfully. So within that company, we've got this person, and they are linked to Airbus Defence and Space Limited. Airbus Defence and Space Limited was started by, you can see at the bottom here, so this is still their overview page. They were called Gift Quick Limited in 1989 when they started. Just having a look at the other names, actually, Marconi. Okay, you'll see they changed the name to Marconi. And Quick Fit Limited, here we go. Swift Incorporation's the same company that started my company up. And on the other page of the incorporation document, you've got Jordan's and Sons. Okay, so linked to the fraud. Now we've got another person now, Dr. Matthew Perkins. Links to Oxford Company. Now remember, Oxford is heavily linked through to Ghislaine Maxwell and Robert Maxwell. They lived in Oxford. Ghislaine Maxwell was a director for Oxford Football Club. And look at the names. So the original one was called Oxford University Research and Development Limited. Then they changed their name to ISIS Innovation Limited in 1988. And on the incorporation document, you have Jordan's again. Back in to the people records, we're looking at a professor now, and they link through to the World Universities Network. So there's various universities networks. But this one, Solent Local Enterprise Partnership Limited, based in Southampton. Remember, my company has close links, or certain individuals has close links to Southampton. It's right near Dorset, not far from Dorset. And we've got London Road, Southampton, Hampshire. Now remember, we are not far away at all from Elon Musk. We are extremely close to Elon Musk, and we're already going to get very quickly to my company. But just to show you here some more fraud throughout. The London Law Agency, a legal entity. So that company should never have been trading. And now we've got connections to the Isle of Wight. Remember, through the Isle of Wight is heavily connected through to the child trafficking and the fraud, and also through to Ukraine. My company links through to Ukraine. And you've got, remember, the offshore island parliamentary group set up by the MP for the area. The links to Ghislaine Maxwell. So we've now got connections to the Isle of Wight. Isle of Wight Chamber of Commerce. Now we're going into that company, Solent, whichever name it was. We now have got this person. Composite Robotics Limited. Sounds very much like Elon Musk, doesn't it? LiveLink Technology Limited. LiveLink Tech Limited at the bottom. Manufacturer of computers and peripheral equipment. This is only some of them, by the way. I've got so many other links. I've just done a small amount just to sort of give you a taste as to where real links. Some of the links here. You can see New Bond Street, 72 New Bond Street. That features throughout the fraud. If you look on the incorporation document, you've got First Class Company Services. And you can see that First Class Company Services linked to the World Trade Center disaster through to Rudy Giuliani, who was the mayor of New York at the time of the collapse. And also Finchley Road, that company links to, and Max Clifford. And it also links to Epstein, Jeffrey Epstein, and a South Coast company as well, where Dorset is. There's also a Horizon company. Remember, you've got the Horizon fraud that's been going on, scandal. Within the Solent company, this person then links to the Association of Independent Professionals and Self-Employed Limited. If you go into it, you'll see at the bottom here, you've got Tavistock Square address. Now, this features throughout different numbers. I didn't screenshot it, but not long ago, there was one of 20 Tavistock Square. Okay, another address for one of the other companies. And this is what they do. They use all different numbers in the same road to avoid any accountability and liability. It is fraud if you give a false address or false name for the setting up of a company. It's fraud. Even Companies House own documents say that, but they're heavily involved and doing it themselves with the forgery. And here you go. This company is featured throughout. CAPB Limited, and you can see it's got Tavistock Square again in London. And they were called Robert Fleming and Co. Limited. And they changed their name to CA, which is Cater Allen, Premier Banking. And they were incorporated in 1932. And this is document within my document file link. Somebody sent me this, actually. Thank you to whoever sent it to me. And it's in relation to SpaceX. And it basically, I haven't read all of it, but it seems to mention the 5G concerns and these satellites all having 5G on them as well. But I do suggest you can go and look at that, and that's in the public document file link. And here's just a summary of it. It's an application seeking relief from the International Bureau's March 13th, 2020, okay, same year as the virus, decision to grant a blanket license to SpaceX for 1 million Earth stations. And it mentions 5G, about 2/3 down there. Vulnerability of 5G in the region, wireless networks. And this, by chance, is an article from today. I didn't even plan for this. This was from today. Elon Musk, SpaceX successfully launches and lands most powerful rocket ever made. And here's SpaceX Limited when you search Companies House. And there's loads of links through to the fraud, but this is just to show you one link through this person to the Exeter Chamber of Commerce. And you can see the same person, same address, London Law Agency, a legal entity company. And this name features a lot like Michael Blood does, Leonard Blood. And I suspect they're either stolen identities or false names being used. But this is a false entity company anyway. Okay, just reading on through my document. Sorry about that in the top right-hand corner. I can't get rid of that for some reason. Not very good at this technology. Now, Number 30th of May 2024, I'm sent a video suggesting that the Zionist regime with Nazi involvement had never gone away and they were behind most of the issues that the world was facing. The information in the video corroborates what I had found in much of my research, including the IBM connection and German companies appearing to establish worldwide media and educational establishments well before World War One. And Israeli companies scattered throughout the fraud research. I will edit this document a little bit just to get rid of some of these, tidy it up. I was rushing it. And yeah, I haven't focused on the Israeli companies. I'm not anti-Semitic in any way whatsoever. I'm not racist in any way. I'm not homophobic in any way. You know, people have free will. But I cannot stand it when people victimize innocents. Nobody can accept that the innocents are being victimized by anyone, especially children. And I'll show that video later. I'll actually publicize that video that I'm talking about. Now, number 31, 31st of May 2024, I speak with staff. So I went along by chance. I was speaking to someone on the phone about the 5G masts, and I was walking along and I saw one. So I speak with staff at a petrol station where a 5G mast had been installed right outside in January 2024. They confirm that since the mast had been erected, many people have problems with the signal on their phones. And despite their specific phone being 5G enabled, they lost their signal. They contacted the network provider who informed them to switch back to 4G. And the problem was resolved as a result of doing so. This suggests the masts are not what people are being led to believe. And the people I've spoken to are technology experts, have said these are not about phone communication. They are a weapon. Okay, I can't corroborate or verify that information from them, but aside from that, I have serious concerns. And this is my conclusion. With all of this information, it has to be considered that the COVID vaccine scandal was all a false flag to a real and deliberately established threat caused by the 5G network / street lighting, because it's within some of the street lights, I believe, and low emission zone cameras in place. This could then enable the possibility to blame any future excess deaths on a publicised fake virus, and the fact that no one took further vaccines be a contributing factor. The 5G systems in place could also enable more digital control and surveillance over the population if required. It is clear that there is a deliberate attempt to remove any legal liability or accountability for the possible health risks imposed by the technology now in place. The use of fraud through safety certificates being produced by dissolved companies is in itself extremely concerning and cause for the technology to be disabled. It is very evident that the system of fraud links to a vast child trafficking network and the apparent murder and abuse of children from the care system. There are growing reports that this is heavily linked to Tony Blair's change to the implementation of early intervention and resulting possible removal of children from families, publicised in 2006. And here is one of those articles from 2006, I believe. You can see it at the top there. Blair to tackle menaced children. Tomorrow's potential troublemakers can be identified even before they are born, Tony Blair suggested. Mr. Blair said it was possible to spot the families whose circumstances made it likely their children would grow up to be a menace to society. He said teenage mums and problem families could be forced to take help to head off difficulties. He said the government had to intervene much earlier to prevent problems developing when children were older. This is very controversial. There's various other articles on that as well. Please go and look at it. Reading on in this bit here, it also says that... where am I? There we go. Publicised in 2006, and that a vast network of illegal entity care homes, and other companies linked to some doctors, social workers, judges, teachers, barristers and solicitors have been specifically put in place in relation to this. Research shows that it is clear that world conflicts such as the Ukraine and Russia war can also be used to capture orphan children into the child trafficking network for either sex, slavery, organ harvesting, experimentation, or for adrenochrome. I'm sorry to talk about those horrible things. It is apparent that with the following, Number one, the continued and more preventable availability of immoral and degrading pornography and paedophile content. Number two, the poor police response to sex offences and child trafficking networks such as in Rochdale. The lack of suitable convictions for sex offenders. Number four, MPs, companies appearing to be affiliated with paedophile groups such as the National Council for Civil Liberty, which is where Harriet Harman comes in, and we mentioned her earlier. And you can look at that on my World Trade Center document video and document. The paedophile information exchange. That the hope, so all of those things to me suggest that the hope was for the majority of the public to be more accepting of proposals such as the reduction in the age of sexual consent to 10, for example. Fortunately, most people realise a 10-year-old should never be able to consent to such an important relationship act. However, this leaves those that are determined to allow such acts in a difficult position on how to deal with those that oppose such long-established views, because these views from these people, they go back centuries, okay? I've already mentioned we've got the apparent Luciferian connections right back centuries ago, okay? And apparently there was all sorts of child sacrifices going on and all sorts of child abuse, etc. So they're now in a difficult position because the public are clearly not going to accept this. How do they deal with it? Now, if you were as sinister as our government and those controlling them appear to be, it would be an almost perfect plan to implement a system of technology over several decades that everyone becomes reliant upon, okay, for their Amazon, for their eBay, for their food deliveries, for their internet banking, etc., and to eventually integrate a selective depopulation weapon into that very system. In my career, I used to assess the threat of risk and harm, and I personally feel that this technology needs to be deactivated immediately to prevent any possible risk of harm to people or their property, such as pets. And there's a legal defence for that. It appears that the government are doing everything possible to ensure that the possible risks not only remain, but intensify, and that there is no suitable accountability and liability for those risks in place. Everyone has a right to defend themselves from harm. Now, these are some images. Some of them I took, some of them are from others, showing 5G masts. There's also now 6G going up, according to what others have told me. Now, apparently they're integrated into the street lighting as well. And I've seen a video of one being dismantled. And according to them, I'm not a technological expert, but the part at the top coming out of some of the street lamps could be the harmful element to individuals. These are some on top of buildings. Some of them go into this box at the base. Some of them have a big box next to it. Most of them have a hatch to them. Hopefully that will make sense. I wanted to get this out there as soon as possible. I will tie up those spelling mistakes and put that document into the document file link and the description, and that will be added to the description of this video. God bless you all. Take care.